Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Woodland Community Consolidated Board meeting for, it's a special board meeting for July 15th, 2021. The meeting will now come to order. Roll call, please.
Carla? Oh.
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Lizzie?
Here.
Renee?
Here.
Corey?
Here.
Anna?
Here.
Brianna?
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We didn't display a flag. Hope that's okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Carla?
Aye.
Joe?
Yes.
Lizzie?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brianna?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have citizen statements. Do we have any citizen statements? Oh, none? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move forward then to reports and discussions. At our last governing board meeting, the board came to a consensus on hearing presentations from the two top options for the search firm. And so the purpose of tonight's meeting is to have presentations by those two firms, which are Illinois Association of School Board and School Exec Connect. So we'll start off with a presentation first from the Illinois Association of School Boards. We have with us Alan Mulby and Patricia Sullivan Denard. Can we let them into the room, please?
Sure. I see Alan Mulby, but there's a different person in the waiting room. So maybe he can clarify.
Oh, okay.
Hi there, Alan. I just have a quick question. Who is joining you for the presentation? I'm trying to find out who I'm looking for in the waiting room.
Hi, it's Dr. Patricia Vineyard. Trish Vineyard. Okay.
So I am seeing somebody in the waiting room with an email, and it's mtorgler@iasb.com.
That's Mary Torgler. She's our administrative assistant in our office. And I know Trish is waiting. She just texted me, wondered if I've been let in yet. So I know she's waiting to be let in.
So is it a possibility she could be logged in as the assistant you just mentioned? Well, I can always let her into the room, and if it's not the right person, we can.
Yeah, it would be her. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to try, let her in. I know she's waiting. So.
All right. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Yeah, there she is.
Okay.
Okay. Well, good evening to both of you. I'm Carla Little, the board president. So thank you for coming tonight and presenting to the board your proposal for our superintendent search. So I'll turn it over to you, Alan, and you can start introducing yourself, and then Tricia, if you want to go next.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Again, I'm Al Mulby, and I'm with the Illinois Association of School Boards. I've been a consultant with IASB for over 6 years now. I'm a retired superintendent from the west side of Cook County. I was in Hillside Elementary School District as superintendent there for 15 years, and I'd been a principal and an administrator and teacher prior to that. So I retired after 38 years in education, and I've been working with IASB ever since. I've worked primarily out of the Lombard office, and we we, myself, and Dr. Vineyard, who will introduce herself in just a second here, we primarily do searches for districts in the suburban area and in the northern part of the state, but we also do work with our other colleagues who are based out of the Springfield office for IASB as well. So I will let her introduce herself as well. And then we do have a short PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through. Hopefully that'll give you an overview of our process. And then hopefully we'll be able to then spend the majority of our time answering questions you might have about IASB's search process. So I'll let Trish introduce herself, and then if you want to turn it to me, back to me as host, and then I can share my screen with the PowerPoint.
Okay, great. Thank you, Al. Good evening. Nice to meet all of you, even though it's virtually. We're thankful for technology opportunities when we're not able to be in the same room. So Al and I really appreciate the opportunity. We're very passionate and dedicated to what we do. I'm in my 40th year in education. I am the newest member of the team, starting my 3rd year, and that also means I'm the most recently retired superintendent. So I just retired in 2019, had the wonderful opportunity to be at LaGrange Highlands. It's an elementary district here in nearby LaGrange, Illinois. And prior to that, I was predominantly downstate. I had the chance to be in West Central Illinois, which is kind of my home stomping grounds, in a large unit district. So district of about 7,000 children, K-12 district. And I was also in the St. Louis Metro East area, in the Edwardsville, Alton area. And I was in a high school district. So I really appreciate the fact that I've been in small districts, large districts, high school, elementary districts, and unit districts. I've been a teacher, an interventionist, a principal, an assistant superintendent, and a superintendent. Thrilled that when I retired in 2019, that IASB gave me the opportunity to come on board and work with Al and the rest of the team. It's a phenomenal team, a wonderful team in every respect. And so thank you for this opportunity tonight.
Okay, thank you both.
Okay, so you're the host now, Al.
I'm the host now, okay.
And while he's sharing the screen and pulling up our PowerPoint, Al will do the bulk of the presentation. Yep, play from start. And he will do really kind of the meat, the nuts and bolts, because what people really want to know the most about is what exactly does the process entail? What parts are standard that are included in all searches? What parts are optional? Because depending on how much time a school board has, where in the year does the vacancy occur, what's extenuating things going on in the district, we really like to customize it and tailor it. It's your search. So some of the options or services are optional. So I'm just going to set the stage, do some preliminary information, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Mulby. So that first screen, obviously our organization does one thing, and that supports school boards. And the different divisions within IASB are focused on their areas. Our division only helps districts do executive searches. And that's all we do, and that's all our team does, and that's where our expertise and love is. Obviously, there are the 6 foundational principles that boards are charged with number 1 being bolded, and it's obviously arguably the most important thing that a board will do. Research shows it has the person you recruit and employ will have a significant impact on everything from achievement to morale. Impact for children, short-term and long-term. Next slide. We just, to put it sort of simply and straightforward, we truly are, IASB truly is the market leader in Illinois when it comes to superintendent searches. And so we saw Al and our team saw some data a couple of days ago, and here's what it boils down to. In Illinois, and this is tracked similarly for the past several years, some districts choose to do their own search. They don't employ anyone. And a lot of times I think that's because either they feel they have the time and expertise to do that. Or, and a lot of times I think this is the case, they have someone from within that they are just certain they're going to promote, and so they feel why go through a search. But when you set those districts aside, the ones who do their own search, of the districts who hire a search firm, we do as many or more searches just ourselves as all of the other for-profit firms added together, combined. I also want to point out in the first bullet, the strong national presence. And sometimes the for-profit firms will say, we are nationwide. We have a national presence, and some of the others don't. And please know that we have a very, very strong national presence. And in your folders that I think were the materials that was sent to you in advance, there's, I don't know if it was electronically that you received it or in an actual hard copy folder, but one of the brochures has NASS on the cover. NAS, we call it NAS, and that stands for the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers. We are an active member of NAS. We have associates in 45 states who are also active members. They get our job postings, we get theirs, and it's also professional development for us in terms of what's happening. How did you pivot when COVID came and needed to adjust? And so it's professional development, but most importantly, it's a service to districts that without any additional fee, your posting does get a national presence. You see a couple of bullet points there about our team, the number of years of search experience, the number of number of combined years of consultant experience, and the number of searches that just our current team has been involved in. So obviously across the history of IASB, we've done many, many, many hundreds of searches in Illinois, but our current team has directly facilitated 300. And there's information also that you received from Mr. Mulby about our organization, our particular team, pictures of our team and whatnot. The next slide. Obviously, one of the most important components is attracting and recruiting a diverse, top quality slate of candidates. So this is representative of some of the ways that we do that. You will notice, I will not read this to you, but you have this information, and you can just notice that many of the opportunities are state professional organizations, but also a number of them are national, at the national level, where we have FaceTime with current superintendents, very, very strong aspiring superintendents. And this list constitutes literally, and you'll hear the number in a moment, thousands of individuals who hear about our postings, receive our postings, and get information about them. And the next slide is the actual advertising. And so again, you see some state organizations, IASA has the job bank, and our IASB has our section on there for executive searches. You also see again the NAS, the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searches, so an AASA. So you see some state and you see some national. I mentioned before that we have, just because, so for example, on the previous slide, one of the things was the seeking the superintendency that we facilitate 3 times a year. And the people who come to that are typically central office administrators who are strongly thinking about becoming a superintendent. And a lot of times it's superintendents who have been perhaps moved up in their district, been in the same district for 5, 10, 12 years, and it's been a while since they've interviewed. And so they want to come and get a refresher. And so from those kinds of opportunities, as well as all of the others mentioned and listed there, we have an email list of over 8,000 individuals. Nationally, but many, many, many of them in Illinois. So I just wanted to mention that because besides advertising on the places that you see there on the screen, which is where a lot of candidates go, they directly get our links to all of our job postings and our other professional development for superintendents and aspiring superintendents. And I think the next slide, it turns back over to Mr. Mulby, where you really want to know the nuts and bolts of what will we do for you. Al?
Thanks, Trish. The next few slides, I will kind of walk you through the process that we use to conduct your search. When we look at a process, we usually look at it in terms of about a 4-month time frame, from the time in which you employ us to begin the search, all the way through until the right candidate, that best fit, is found and employed by your district. And at that point, we still aren't done, because we're your association, and our goal is to make not only the process for you as painless as it can be, because we do the legwork, we do the grunt work, we make sure that you're involved all along the way. However, by the time the right candidate, that ideal candidate, is selected by you as a board, we want to make sure then from that point, it's still a successful venture on your part. And so you will have employed that person, but we don't just stop. And that's where we're different from a headhunting firm, in that as your association, the goal is to make sure that it's a successful transition with your new superintendent, and also a successful time from that point on for both your district, your students, your stakeholders, and you as a board, because it's a significant change with a new superintendent coming to you. And so our job doesn't stop. We have field service directors who provide assistance and service and workshops to you as a part of this process at no cost, in which you can work with your new superintendent and the field service director in establishing some goal setting, or some transitioning, or some evaluation plans. However you want to design that workshop, that continues after you've employed him or her. So we look at like I said, about a 4-month time frame from the beginning until the employment, but then it continues on beyond that. And so, like I said, these next few slides kind of itemize the steps in the process, from the utilization and of Dr. Vineyard and myself as the search coordinators, who will be leading the process and leading you as board members through it, and communicating with you throughout every step of the way. When you decide to hire us, we will come back and with some more specific logistical information regarding setting up a timeline that will work for you as a board, work for your stakeholders and staff, and also work for the candidates who will be applying for the position. And so the first really significant part of this process is to create the profile of your ideal candidate, and to create the profile of not only your district, to promote your district to the interested candidates, but also the specifics as far as what you're looking for and what your stakeholders are looking for in your next superintendent. And so we have a couple different ways in which we do that. We will obviously survey and interview you as individual board members. We also have an online survey that we would administer to your staff and faculty, and to your parents and to community members, and generate responses on their perspectives of what they see as the ideal candidate, and put together some of the specifics that they would like to see, and they meaning the stakeholders, in terms of possible requirements such as previous superintendent experience, residency in your district, whatever other types of things you might want to be considering. So we can talk about the specifics of the survey as well. Again, it's an online survey. We usually keep it open for about the first 2 weeks of the process, which in this case we would be looking at probably sometime mid-August, when school's starting to gear up and people are somewhat more focused now on the district, and so we can have that survey ready to go at that point. It's just done with a link that gets distributed to your stakeholders, and then they can respond to the survey accordingly. We then do all of the summarizing and come back to you and present an overview of the survey, give you as a board a sense of what this input looks like. In addition, we summarize all of the individual board members' responses to our more unique questions that we would have for you to put together this profile. One of the optional pieces too, that's not included in the basic fee, in the basic search, because not all boards choose to do this, and this would be to conduct focus group interviews with stakeholders to gather more input on what that ideal candidate profile should look like. And this would be where Dr. Vineyard and or myself would come and host meetings with staff, with community members, whatever you as a board would choose. And in those small group discussions, again, solidify some of that information that is out there as far as what the next superintendent should be in that sense. That, like I said, that is an add-on option because not all boards want to do that. They feel like the survey is sufficient to gather that initial input that they'd like to have in putting together the profile. You see at the top of this slide, before I move on, our standard search fee, that's based on enrollment. And so that hasn't changed over the last, I think, 3 years. Our fee has remained the same. However, the total fee, which could include some add-on options, that is not accurate as of today, actually as of yesterday, because we did make a change. We met as a department down in Springfield 2 days ago and had some discussion about some of these add-on features. And when I get to one of those, we no longer are going to be charging for that, and I'll explain why when we get to that. So that actually would be less. Instead of the $15,900 that's shown, it would be $12,900. That $3,000 reduction comes from another piece that I'll get to in just a minute. As I continue on through the process, not only do we assist you in putting together that profile, but we also develop an announcement of vacancy brochure that basically is the announcement advertisement, and that gets disseminated through a variety of different sites and sources, as Dr. Vineyard mentioned previously, and it's posted on all of these different job sites as a PDF. And when an interested potential applicant goes to that site and clicks on the brochure, it opens and gives a profile not only of the desired candidate, but also of your district. It's a chance for you to sell yourselves. It has a lot of information regarding demographics, financial information, program information, as well as specifics and timelines regarding the position itself. And so that's kind of the crux of the promoting the vacancy is this announcement that we would develop. And it incorporates the response information from the survey. It incorporates interview responses from you as board members, as well as if you choose to add that focus group piece, and it includes some of that information as well. Moving on, after that's put together, which is usually in that first 2 to 3 week period of the process, and so we would be looking at early September, where this would be able to be in place and be out there and posted on all of the different sites and venues that Trish mentioned. In the meantime, we can provide you some guidance on appropriate compensation that can help you as a board as you begin to your thinking regarding the candidates that are going to be brought to you. During you usually keep the applications open for about a 4 to 5 week period. They're online applications. It's all done through Frontline AppleTrack. And so we collect the applications through that online system. We screen all of the applications that are submitted. We verify all of the candidates' qualifications in terms of what you're looking for. We also verify that they have Illinois licensure. We feel it's very important for candidates be brought to you to interview who already have their Illinois license. We don't feel that it's fair to you to have somebody who says, well, I'm going to have it by the end of June, and you need to have this person in place on July 1st. Sometimes ISBE doesn't operate in the same way that everybody else does in terms of making sure proper licensure and certification information is granted. So this is one of we're pretty sticky about this to make sure. And out-of-state candidates, they know right up front that they have to have their Illinois license in place if they're going to be advanced to you as a candidate. And you will have out-of-state candidates. That's kind of backing up to one of the things that we mentioned before. You know, when we talk about recruiting and attracting candidates, we find that one of the first places that out-of-state administrators look, if they're looking to relocate to Illinois, they look at our website for the vacancies that we're working with. So we will attract candidates. Even though we only serve districts in Illinois, we attract candidates from all across the country and sometimes beyond. And so I think that's something that you need to keep in mind in terms of your candidate pool that will be developed. You're going to have a very strong pool of candidates. You're going to be a district that's very attractive, and so I think that that's something that's very much in your favor. After we do the screening of the applications, we do this based on what the candidate profile looks like that was developed early on in the process, and we narrow a slate of candidates to recommend to you. While we're doing that, we also verify references that they provide to us. We conduct a limited background inquiry for those top candidates. We don't have the legal ability to conduct a criminal background check. Only a hiring entity can do that. However, our attorneys and our legal department indicated to us that we can do background inquiries, which basically is us following up on names and people who are provided to us as their references, and we can speak to them about the potential candidates for your district. We also can talk to people who aren't necessarily provided to us by the applicant, because we know, through our consultants in their department, we know a lot of people and board members in Illinois, and we can reach out to them for information about possible candidates for you. Let's see. The next step is the piece that we've made a change in, and that was previously we would talk to all of the candidates that we're recommending for you to consider for interview. We would always talk to them via phone, but we didn't always have a chance to meet them. However, what we did at that prior to Tuesday was if a board chose, we would have maybe the top 10 to 12 semifinalists come to our office in Lombard and meet with them individually and conduct those initial interviews. And that would require 2 consultants to do that. And so there was an additional cost in that. Again, that was not something that all districts wanted to do in the search process, so it was not part of the basic fee. Since our discussion, we found that this is such an important step for us to get a chance to meet face-to-face, whether that be in person or via Zoom, with the top 10 to 12 potential candidates, that we'll just incorporate that into our process and into our basic fee. So that normal cost, which would have been a $3,000 additional cost, $1,500 for each of us to be involved in these interviews, these screening interviews, that is now deducted from that total amount. So you're like one of the first districts that's getting the better deal here. So we're glad to be able to share that with you. I think it'll help as we move ahead, because we feel that that's an important piece of the process, is for us to interview those top candidates face to face and get a chance to really feel like, okay, we feel good about developing this slate of maybe 6, and we'll call them finalists, that we can present to you. And so we would narrow it down to a slate of 6, could be more, could be less. So we'll say, between 5 to 7 finalists that we would bring to you as finalists for you to interview as a board. We feel that it's important for you as a board to do those initial interviews with those 6 finalists and not involve anybody else. The more people you involve in the process, especially at the beginning, the harder it is to come to a consensus, because everybody's going to like somebody. And so if you feel that the first round of interviews that you conduct needs to include administrative team or staff or community, whatever, everybody's going to like somebody there, and it's going to be really difficult for you as a board to go back to that main thought that we started our discussion with, is that you hire the superintendent, and that's the key thing that we want to keep coming back to. So with that, we encourage boards to do their first round of interviews just as a board of 7, usually about an hour and a half apiece for those candidates to come and meet with you. We can help you with the logistics of that. We've got a variety of information about interviewing. We've got a bank of about 100 interview questions that you can choose from if you wish, or shape to meet your needs and put together your interview structure for the first round. Generally, what we encourage boards then is to invite maybe 2 or 3 of those finalists back as your true finalists for a final interview. And that's where you can involve more, and we encourage you to involve more people in the last step of the process where you would interview the finalists. Maybe have, if you have 2, for example, have them come on 2 different days and evenings, spend time in your district, visit schools, involve staff and community and union representation, and whoever you wish in that interview process of your 2 finalists. And again, we can help you with the logistics and protocols of that. One of the other optional pieces that we encourage boards to do now is to involve us in helping to facilitate the final step of these semifinals interviews by helping to facilitate stakeholder groups as a part of that. So possibly while you as a board are interviewing one of the candidates, we as a consultant, one of us would be holding, facilitating interviews with the stakeholders who you might choose to be a part of that final step with the other finalist, and that if that's how it were to work. So that would be something that we would encourage you to do. It's not something you have to do. Again, these are just options, and you can of course choose not to, and we would always adjust the proposed amount based on what your desire is as a board. The last piece there, or the last step, is, as I indicated, it really follows the employment of that new superintendent. Hopefully you've gotten to that point where you conduct a site visit. You can send 2 board members to your final choice's current district, his or her district. You can go and we can help you with setting that up as far as kind of some mini interviews with possible people that he or she would like you to meet with in his or her district as a kind of a final step to help confirm what you've been able to glean from the whole interview process about your preference for the position. After you offer the position and the employment is finalized, again, the last step is that post-search workshop provided by our field service directors for you and also for the new superintendent. Because again, that's kind of where I culminate what we started with is as your association we want it to be not only a successful search, but we want it to be a successful relationship from that point on. And so that's where that comes in. Again, these are the additional services that are kind of our a la carte menu that we provide to boards to choose from. We did recommend doing the in-district stakeholder information gathering at the beginning. One of us would help to meet with different focus groups and add to that input step if you would choose. The second thing that's checked there is what is now no longer going to be a part of that. So it's going to be a part of the process. It's just not going to be at an additional cost for you, where we will interview the top candidates and then narrow down that slate to 5, 6, or 7 finalists. We would, encourage you to involve us in that last interview step, where we could help to facilitate in-district interviews with stakeholders with those finalists, and we could work out those logistics should you choose to include that. We can provide additional advertising, and that would just, we would just, turn that actual cost over to you through publications such as Education Week. We don't find this we don't have districts that really do this much anymore. It's kind of the means by which the advertisements and the advertising of the vacancy is done through the different websites of the different organizations that Trish mentioned early on. This is sufficient to reach a very wide range of interested candidates. So we can advertise for you in some publications should you choose, and then we just pass on that cost to you, whatever the publication might charge, and we just do the facilitating of it for you. If you choose, we do offer practice interviewing sessions for board members if you wish. If you have board members who have maybe been through this process before, either for superintendent or other administrators, you may feel very comfortable with that. We also provide you print information along the way as far as the interviewing protocols and what you can and can't do and so on. So, we don't find a lot of districts that choose to do that, but if you want practice interview, mock interviews, training session, we can certainly arrange that too. Just kind of in concluding here, we think that what's important is that we're responsible only to you as a Board of Education. We keep you involved in the process all along the way. And as I said earlier, it's your search, and we do the work, but we involve you in this. We have a very strong retention rate as far as candidates or superintendents who we placed in different searches around the state, and the percentage that are still in that same position after 4 or 5 years. It's a pretty transient profession. You know, I was unique in that I was in my same district for 15 years. You don't find that in Illinois superintendencies too many times, where they're in their same position for a long time. And so that's what you want. You hope you've got somebody who's that right fit and is going to stay. You know, we provide a statement of assurance in terms of we don't stop until that right fit is found. If the candidates that we bring to you to interview, if you don't find that right person, we'll continue. We'll reopen the search. We'll bring you another tier of candidates, and we'll continue until that right fit is there. We also have a guarantee of services, and I guess this is kind of the money back guarantee, in that if at the end of that first year or during that first year, if it's just not working out, or if your candidate or if your superintendent is going to chooses to leave after the first year, either your choice or his or her choice, for whatever reason, we will do another full search at no cost to you. And I guess I'm kind of proud to say we don't have to use that very often. It's it's something that usually, if it happens, it's for personal reasons, where a superintendent just has to move on or whatever. But we will do that after that, within that first 12 or soon thereafter, if it's just not going to be a continued relationship between you as a board and your superintendent. As Trish had indicated, we've developed a very strong national presence in attracting candidates from across the country for our searches. And our experience in Illinois is very strong. We've worked we've done searches for over 300 school districts in the past few years. We've served districts in 76 out of the, I don't know, however many counties there are, 89 counties in Illinois. But I think that we've done a very strong job for the districts that we've worked with, and we'd be very pleased to work with you, and we would be able to start just as soon as you would choose to hire us and pass a motion to employ us to do the search. We would post the vacancy right away, and then we would start generating some of the specifics as far as getting that profile put together. But posting the vacancy right away on our website and IASA's website is key, because all of those interested applicants who are made aware of that, they know right away that we're doing the search, and then they know that brochure is going to be put together, and they kind of know what to expect as far as the process from that point on. And it's a way to get the notice out there early on that we'll be doing your search. In the meantime, we would provide your district office with a form in which they would provide information to us to put into the brochure. But like I said, we would put a survey together, and we'd meet with you prior to that, just to make sure it's what you're looking for and is going to get the kind of information that you're looking for. Does anybody have any questions about any of the slides so far? And if not, I'll stop sharing and turn the host back to you, Brooke, and then we can continue discussion if you like.
Mm-hmm. I will open it up for board members' questions now. I did want to say, I believe it's 102 counties in Illinois.
Is that what it is? Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember for sure. I knew it was somewhere around that, but I didn't know for sure.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So we have 2 new board members, and aside from Dr. Little, I don't think any of us have been involved in a superintendent interview process. My name's Joe, by the way, Alan. I really liked your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My question is about the interview augmentation option and about some board member training. I believe pretty strongly that just about anybody can have a great interview. So the process is really important to me, and also educating board members on the process and really kind of helping us through it, I think, is every bit as important as involving community stakeholders and the search for the right superintendent. So I think there's some board education that's going to be needed. I know from my own standpoint there is. So can you talk a little bit about the interview augmentation process and what you do to help board members make this really important decision?
Sure, absolutely. I think that first that we would kind of want to get a feel from all 7 of you as far as where you're at in entering into that part of the process. If you've had experience with that before, if you haven't, and what your comfort level is, and just at that point, it would be towards the end of the process, but prior to the interviewing stage, obviously. But we would want to, kind of look at, what a typical initial interview might look like. And we would, as former superintendents, you could interview us, you could talk to us as if we were you're going to be your candidate. We would give you some responses that you would then be able to, see how that fits into, your thinking. Also, we have questions for you to think about, because obviously, your candidates, especially the finalists, are going to want to ask you your thoughts on things about the state of the district, the state of, education in your communities and so on. And so we kind of want you to be prepared for that too. So we help you through that part of it as well. Sometimes, a board member doesn't expect a question from a candidate, and, you all want to look good, and you want to, be somewhat prepared for that, for the responses there. And so we'd kind of give an idea of what types of things candidates might be looking for from you as a board to help in not only sharing the right information, but also feeling comfortable about doing it too. So I think there's just a variety of things we would kind of, want to know from you, what you would want to know in that interviewing piece, heading into it, both in the initial as well as in the final, where you would very likely involve a broader group, your administrative team, for example, your union leadership, your community representation, staff representation, and so on. And so we would kind of walk you through what questions might look like in those two settings, and kind of help you through a variety of different pieces of that. Trish, is there anyone to add into that?
Yeah, I was going to add just a couple of things briefly. And one is that we do provide one of the reasons that even though boards turn over fairly regularly, and so often we will get this question, and we got it just the other night, where a board said, boy, a lot of us are new, and there's only one person who's even been involved in a superintendent search previously, and it was 15 years ago, something like that. And so what we have found is, number one, we do a very thorough job of preparing you for the first round interview and the final round interview. We have a lot of information. It's all written down, so you don't have to try to remember it. It's organized by section. What do you do to get ready for the first round interview? What do you do during the first round interview? What do you do after the first round interview? How do you prepare for the second one, et cetera? So we typically find that even boards that are what Joe was saying in that situation of, boy, maybe we do want that, we typically find that after we go through the process, the training process we have, that they then say, you know what, we actually feel comfortable. The other thing is, you don't have to decide now. So you can wait and see how you feel after we provide that training. And then it's something that can be added later, like, yeah, we're still feeling like we would really like that practice opportunity, and like to augment the training. And as Al said, essentially it is us acting as the candidate, you interviewing us, and then us debriefing and giving you feedback, tips, pointers.
Does that help? Does that help answer?
That help, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much.
Great.
And again, this is something that, as we move into that, along in the process, as we get closer to that interview stage, if you feel like you want to add that in, then we can certainly make that kind of adjustment based on how you're feeling, and maybe just based on some of our feedback, regarding candidates and the screening process up to that point. So that's something we can revisit, a little bit later on in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Board members, other questions? Lori, if you want to ask a question too.
I have just one quick question. I'm wondering, for the survey at the beginning of the process, how specific is that to our district? Is it, standard that you use with every district, or is it tailored to our district specifically?
Good question. And we can, it's kind of a combination of both. We have there's a part where there's some characteristics listed that are research based in terms of, professional educators, professional leadership qualities. And we give respondents an opportunity to kind of prioritize those as far as what they feel are the most important to you as a board member and to your district. And they're obviously the characteristics that you'd like to have a superintendent who has every one of those 15 characteristics. But it gives you, as well as the community and also the staff, a chance to kind of think through, okay, we really want somebody who's got fiscal knowledge in terms of school business, or a real strong background in curriculum, or a strong background in bargaining, or whatever it may be. So there's a variety of topics embedded in these characteristics, and so it kind of gives you a thinking, a trend in the thinking of the respondents. Also, then there's other questions that can be included that are more specific to your district, and that's where you as a board, we would work with you as far as what you would want. And generally they're yes/no questions. And again, it's not a scientific survey. We tell that to boards right up front. It's just a way for you to get a feel for your community and your staff. It's also sometimes all that they really want to know is that they've been asked, and they're very comfortable and confident the fact, oh, they asked us what we thought about this and I gave my responses, and they feel good about that. And sometimes communities, that's really, all you need, and that's all boards want sometimes. You can include an open comment section in that survey as well. We always tell boards, you got to be careful what you ask for if you have an open comment section. And we summarize and provide you the things that can help you and help us in the search based on the survey. But you don't have to include the comment section if you don't want. If you just want it to be, prioritizing these characteristics and answering some yes/no questions, generally, which might include, do you want your next superintendent, for example, to have had superintendent experience? So should he or she have had experience in a elementary district, a unit district, whatever your specifics might be? Do you want your superintendent to reside in your district? You as a board have the right to require that. Generally in the suburban area, it's not quite as common to see a district require their superintendent to reside in the district, but some do. Generally, the further out from metropolitan areas you get, the more you find that communities, especially the smaller communities downstate, want their superintendent residing in their district, and they require that. So that can be something you can at least get some yes/no preferences from the community and staff on. You can look at some other things that maybe that we can give you some examples as far as what you might want to get some responses on. Again, it gives you just a feel for what's out there in the thinking by your staff and your community as far as the next superintendent. The questions that we ask of you as a board, you can respond in that survey as well, but we also then spend more time with you individually with some questions that can give us more specifics about what you're looking for and what your hope is, not only for your next superintendent, but also things about your district that you can then share with us, and then we share it with your whole board anonymously, of course, and that way the whole board gets a kind of a feel for what everybody, of your group of 7 is thinking about as you're heading into this process.
Yeah. I did have some comments, but I'm going to open it up further questions from other board members. And again, Lori, Laura, if you guys have questions, you might want to ask them as well. If you have a lot of experience working with as a superintendent or with superintendents, so
Sure.
we value your input as well.
I do. It's Lori. Hi. It's nice to meet you. I'm Lori Casey. I'm the current superintendent. And this is the best district you'll ever work with. So I'll just, if that happens, I'll just prepare you right now.
All right, that's good to know.
I do have a question. How many searches do you do at one time? Like how many searches do the 2 of you are you responsible for at one time?
Good question. Right now, as we head into the coming year, and timing-wise, you're in a great time right as far as starting your search, because that gives us, the fall to work through this. But right now, I'm currently working with 5 other districts right now. Generally, all of our consultants kind of share in the process, but we usually are at any given time working with about 4 to 5 to maybe 6 districts. Trish and I do a lot of working together with districts in the suburban area. They tend to be bigger districts, and so working together as a team helps us. Trish, I don't know if you want to add into that.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said, and just add that we're very intentional about, number one, not taking on more than we can dedicate our full attention to. And number two, we're very intentional about the timeline that we establish. So if we tend to be assigned by part of the state. And so as Al said, he and I tend to do a lot of the Chicago area northern, but it's also by workload. And so if there was an unusual period of time where we had an unusual number of districts, there are 4 other consultants in the state who are phenomenal. And so I, for example, was working with a district way down by St. Louis earlier this year because that it just helped balance the workload. And so we also look at the timeline. We wouldn't have in the same week or the same short period of time the same kinds of things going on with searches. So this one's closing here, this one's closing here, this one's closing here. So we've developed kind of a rhythm so that, because there are times in the search where we are heavily needed, heavily involved, more times involved. Then there are times in the search where we're not. We're waiting for applications. Folks are filling out applications. So hope that helps a little bit too.
Yeah.
Other questions? What else?
Well, it sounds like you guys have mainly addressed the questions since not many are coming in from the board. I have to tell you, I am one of the board members that have a lot of experience with the superintendent searches, and the last couple of searches we've done, we started off with IASB. And I remember one in particular where we actually, after we had gone through the training and talked about what the characteristics we were looking for in a superintendent, we actually did not go forward with the search because we realized that person was already in the district. So I think that was very helpful, working with IASB. And of course, I enjoy all of your trainings, that you offer, professional development that you offer for board members. So I like the idea of once we have a superintendent, then we'll have that wraparound services of starting with the professional development and forming that board superintendent relationship. I mean, really, that's in addition to just wanting to support IASB because you are our association and you've always done great work for us. But then I think that was kind of the selling point for me, just to know that if we chose you, then you'll carry that through the process. So I didn't have any questions. I just wanted to commend you actually on the presentation and the services that you're offering.
Thank you. And you brought up a point that I forgot to mention, and you mentioned the internal candidate that evolved at some point on a previous search for you. And that's something that, we always let boards know too, that if you have the potential of internal candidates that may or may not be considered in your mind, we need to talk about that up front. We can handle that however you wish. Sometimes boards feel the need, or maybe they even have a contractual requirement where they have to interview anybody who from in the district would apply. That's not always the case. Sometimes boards, they're okay with maybe a courtesy interview, knowing full well that they're not going to move forward with somebody. Other times they just want to see how they stack up against the rest of the field. And so we can handle that if that's the case. If there's internal possibilities that you want us to consider in a certain way, then we'll talk about that, ahead of time as well. And then we'll know how to handle that and how that person, should be put into the mix, or just see if they become one of those final 10 or 12 that we would interview, and then 6 that you would interview. So that's something we could talk about down the road if that were to be a possibility too. I'm glad you mentioned that, Carla. Thank you.
I would just add a couple of things. One, I just really want to underscore how thoroughly and carefully we analyze applications. So it says screen, we screen applications, but they are very, very lengthy. And there are narrative answers, and there are experiences, and there's resume, and there's transcripts, and there's a letter of application, and just a plethora of materials. And we really carefully scrutinize and analyze and look at every candidate against what your district or against what the hiring district is looking for. So we just pay such careful attention to detail because of the magnitude and importance of the decision. We would be thrilled to have to work with you on the search, and I am fully confident you would be absolutely completely pleased and satisfied and happy with the results. And we do charge less than the for-profit firms, and it's because, as you mentioned, Carla, we're already here serving districts. That's our role. We're not for profit. So occasionally we get districts that think, well, if this one's charging more, that they must do a better job. We are comprehensive and so experienced and professional and good at what we do and love what we do, but it isn't as much as the other firms because we're here to serve our districts, and we're not for profit. So we'd love the opportunity to work with you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you both.
May I ask a question real quickly?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
It's Laura. May I ask a question really quickly?
Yeah.
So my question is, do you work or do you as the consultants and or the search firm, do you speak with our administrative and leadership team as far as what they would be looking for specifically? I know you said that you do send out a survey, but do you meet actually with our administrative team and those who will be working very closely with the superintendent?
If you were, the answer to that could be yes, in that if you would choose for us to do that initial focus group interview time with stakeholders, they could be one and would very likely be one of your stakeholder groups, and we would meet with them individually and solicit input from them. If not, if that's a step where you would choose not to include and you just want to use the survey, we could develop a separate survey just for your administrative team as well, with some specific questions that would relate to their interests, needs, and so on, and how that fits into the process. So we can work with you on that. So I guess the answer is yes.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Question.
Thank you. That is a great question.
Anything else? I hope we've addressed everything. We look forward to hearing from you after you've made a decision. I believe that one of the items that was emailed to or sent electronically to you would be our professional services agreement, which you would sign. We would just adjust the dollar amount based on the fact that we have that change and that reduction of that amount for the interviewing on our part, but also anything else that you may or may not want to include, then we would then make any changes on the agreement there, and then you would sign it and we'd get started in the process.
Okay, we do have a board meeting next Thursday to make the final decision.
Great.
Right.
In case you're wondering.
Perfect. And
Great.
look forward to talking to you after that.
Okay, that sounds good.
And if anything comes up between now and then, you have our email addresses and our cell numbers are on that. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or need any other information.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank
Okay.
you very much.
You bet. Thanks a lot for your time tonight, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Did you guys, Brooke, well, let me check with the board first. Did you guys want to take a stretch break? Yep, I see some nods. So let's take a 5-minute stretch break, and then we'll let the next group in so it's 7:30. Let's round it up to 7:35. So let's come back at 7:40. Okay. Is there a clock we can put up? No clock. Okay. We'll be back. And we got one more minute till the break is over. We're right at 7:40. So Brooke, did you want to let the representatives from School Exec Connect into the room? Tim Shemp, the senior associate, is with us tonight.
We'll do that now.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Tim. Welcome to the meeting tonight. We appreciate you coming in to give us a presentation on what your firm can do for us with our superintendent search. I'm Carla Little, the board president.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the team.
Yes, I'm Dr. Tim Shemp. I'm currently a superintendent in Yorkville School District. We're a pre-K-12 district of about 6,500 students. I'm in my 8th year as superintendent, and I'll share a little bit more as we start our presentation.
Welcome again. And do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
I do. So I'll share my screen.
Yeah, well, Brooke will make you the host.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I assume everyone can see that?
Yes.
And Dr. Little, how much time have you allowed for this so I can stay on track?
Yeah, just go ahead. We want you to do the full presentation, so take as much time as you need, please.
Yeah, and I'll leave more time for Q&A and discussion if that's okay. I know you've all have the proposal and have had the opportunity, I'm sure, to review it. So again, thank you for having me. Dr. Kelly Galt is not with us tonight. And also, if we are selected, Dr. Kevin O'Mara, also the president of School Exec Connect, will likely be joining and help them facilitate this search. But as you see on the slide, I've been in education for almost 28 years now. I've been in Yorkville for 14. I've served as a principal and associate superintendent and oversaw all things teaching and learning prior to my role as a superintendent now. Special education teacher to start, and been in the student services end of things for earlier in my career. And then you see the different organizations that I am actively a part of. Successful searches that I've been involved with and or facilitated include Urbana for 2 positions, Lake Park High School, Lake Zurich, Barrington most recently, the superintendent, Elk Grove Elementary most recently, and then Elmhurst most recently. Dr. Galt is currently the Lake Zurich superintendent. She's been there a couple of years. You can see the different capacities she's worked in, both at the elementary. She's been an elementary principal and worked in K-12 districts throughout her career, as well as elementary districts in Hinsdale 181. Some recognition for Kelly recently for the Lake County up in that area, and for the Educator of the Year in Lake Zurich. Also part of LUDA and AASA and ISA, and she has done some work as a professor to the doctoral program at Aurora. What I'll spend most of the time talking about is pages 10 through 15 on your proposal, going through the different phases of our search process. School Exec Connect has been around for 16, 17, 18 years now, 400 plus searches. We are national, although a lot of the searches and the associates are primarily Midwest of, when you think about Missouri, Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky, but we do have associates across the country. We're very proud of the network that we've created in that capacity. And as you can see from a success rate standpoint, we very much make sure that the people that we find and the people that ultimately that you bring for your final vote and final decision are there and remain there. We know what it's the resources that are put in place to go through a search and the continuity and the consistency when you have someone that you want to stay in your district. So we are committed to that as well. I speak for that as in my own district. Being here for 8 years, longevity is important. So we take great pride in the success rate of having candidates that we bring forward in good standing with all of you after that first 3 to 5 year contract. And then obviously you have a list of references, and certainly there's more available if by request. So I'm going to break it into the 4 different phases as broken out on page 10 of the search plan. This would really begin as soon as the board is come to a decision on their search firm. All of these timelines are very flexible based upon the needs that you have and your desire. But we would sign a letter of agreement as soon as the board would select us. And then we would immediately begin to have a planning meeting with you at a date that would be convenient for you. And at that planning meeting, we would talk about the search, whether it be a confidential or an open search. We would talk about the level of stakeholder involvement that you want or don't want. And we talk about from the interview process to the forums and such. We would talk about the different type of liaison and communication process that we would have with all of you or the various members of your district. If there's any internal candidates, how they would be treated compared to external candidates, and who some of those would be potentially. And then part of that first meeting too would be to talk about some of the comparison districts that you put yourself against, either academically, financially, and we would create a report for you of a superintendent compensation report, as well as any other distinguishable metrics that you would like to see, so that you have that available as we bring candidates forward to you. So once that's done, we would have our meeting and go through our search timeline with you. We would spell out very specifically the dates that we're going to meet, the dates in which we're going to start interviewing candidates, the dates in which we're going to bring candidates to you for consideration, the time we're going to do a training session with the board on the interview process, and ultimately then, what's the timetable for the stakeholder, if there are stakeholder interviews, part of the process, and then the final decision, the final vote by the board of the new superintendent. So we would, at that initial meeting, we would go through all those, so you have a very clear idea over the next 3, 4, 5 months on what dates are going to happen and what's going to happen in each of those, so that we're all our calendars are tight. Your time is very precious, to make sure that we are solid moving forward. From there, we're going to begin the stakeholder engagement when we get into phase B, basically the second 2 bullet points. Talking about, we're going to have we like to have an interview with each of the board members individually. Talk about what are the strengths of the district, what are some of the opportunities of the district, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for in your next community leader and school leader, and then what are some of the priorities that you would say are necessary and required as the new superintendent would take their position in July of the following year. So all those board interviews would be held either virtually or in person with each of you. We would also talk about at that planning meeting, but then come forward and begin the focus groups. Typically, we have done between 8 to 12 focus groups. And those focus groups are individuals that all of you or your staff have identified and invited to the table to speak with us. So from certified to non-certified to district admin, building admin, community members, business leaders, clergy, whatever we come up with as a group, we would go through that process. And there's about 10 to 12 people in each of those focus groups. And we would ask those individuals the same 4 questions that I just shared with each of you as board members. In addition to that, we would have open forums, and we would decide, and those are basically for anybody to come, and we would decide, does each building, your 4 schools, each get an open forum, and then we have a community one at large. So there could be anywhere between 4 to 6 to 7 open or community forums where people can just show up, and we would facilitate a dialogue with your stakeholder groups. Simultaneously, while that's going on, we would be putting out a survey to your community. We would show you the survey, obviously. If there were questions that you would like to add, we'd give you the opportunity to do that. But again, it's looking for the strengths and opportunities, characteristics, and priorities of the next leader that you're looking for, your community is looking for. And then once all that information is brought together, we create basically a very qualitative, detailed summary report for the board, and we'll come back to present it. And that's where you see the new superintendent profile. So we're going to present our findings at a board meeting, an open meeting. We're going to share themes. We'll give you a 15, 20-page document that summarizes all of the qualitative responses from the survey, as well as our focus groups and open forums, or focus groups and community forums. And then we will create a profile saying that based upon all the stakeholder engagement opportunities, all the feedback they received, this is what your community is telling us they would like to see in the next leader. And obviously, short of a miracle or the perfect person out there, you're probably not going to find someone with everything, but it certainly is going to give the board and us an opportunity to look at what are those essential qualities and characteristics that you want, so that when we start interviewing and screening applicants, we can keep that in mind. We can start tailoring our questions for those interviews to that superintendent profile. So that's something that we'll bring to a board meeting. It will be approved at the board level. Sometimes the board will tweak it. Sometimes the board will modify some wording here and there, and then we'll make it very public on the website to the community. And then we get into the final two phases, which when we get into October, November, it's really the finding of people, the finding of those candidates. So we will do our screening of candidates. We do everything typically in person. Obviously, COVID put a little bit of a twist on that, but we do like to see body language. We do like to get in the room with somebody to see how they carry themselves and present themselves. So typically we're going to interview between 20 and 30 candidates for this position. And we will be doing informal background checks prior to bringing them to any of you. We'll certainly be calling their references. We will do Google searches. We will use our network to find out more about the candidates in the pool that we would consider bringing back to the board. We are going to recruit both statewide and nationally, and I'll talk about some of the recruiting efforts at the end. But again, we're going to go off that new superintendent profile, really starting in August, to start thinking about candidates, tapping people on the shoulder of districts based upon things that we identify as needs in your district that you share with us and your stakeholders do. And we'll start doing those interviews in October and November. Typically, we treat internal candidates the same as external candidates, if there were any. But again, that's going to be at the pleasure of the board, how we want to go about that together. And then ultimately, we're going to bring 5 to 7 candidates to the board for consideration. And we will hold a closed meeting in which we introduce you to the 5 to 7. We will share any information that we've gathered through the interviews, anything we've gathered through our reference checks, anything that might be a red flag, but we still believe they're a quality candidate, that something in their past that you would see in their resume or their history if you did a Google search. We're not going to bring anyone to you that we don't feel you could select as the next superintendent. That is, and again, the internals, you might want an internal brought forward to you no matter what happens, and certainly that's going to be your prerogative. And then we will hold a board interview workshop and facilitate that with all of you. Typically, we'll find a night where it's convenient, either before a board meeting, we'll do a special board meeting and go through, and we'll provide questions to you and allow you to either use ours or tailor your own to fit the structure that you're going to put in place. We can be present at those interviews, or you can do it on your own. Districts have done it both ways to help facilitate, or to be another eyes and ears through that process to give feedback. Some boards have said, we like to have you there to see how their answers were similar or different to when you interviewed them. Has anything changed? Did they have the same demeanor and the same response? And it's just another perspective. But again, that'll be something that we would decide as a collective team. And then the last is the interviewing the finalists. So after that 5 to 7, typically we would have the board narrow it down to 3 for a second interview. Sometimes boards decide to have stakeholders involved. So they have a parent committee, a community committee, and maybe possibly a student committee at the middle school level. And you would Our process typically has been with that they do a 15-minute presentation to you on the final three. After that, they participate in a formal interview with you and possibly over dinner, so a little bit to see how they interact on a more casual basis. And then they would also have their interviews with the other two groups, stakeholder groups. There are some boards who said we're doing it by ourselves, we're not including our stakeholders, and they run the process completely as a board, which again, that'd be your prerogative. And from there, we will work with you to provide more references that weren't on the original list, and we would encourage each of the board members to make reference calls. So if each board member made 2 calls to get another 14 references from union reps to community leaders to teachers, whoever that is that we help identify and you help identify with us. We will do all the legwork to get that information for you. It would just be a matter if you wanted to call them on your own or have us do it formally. We would also then work with you on just ensuring timelines are met with getting the contract going earlier than later in the process, so that once you do finalize your the individual that you want to move forward, there is no hang up and hold up, especially as we get closer to December and January, where candidates might have more options, and the candidate that you select might also be in the running for another district. We want to make sure that your district is certainly the priority in that space. So in a nutshell, I'm not going to go through all those again, but it is a very formal, structured process that we're going to be alongside with you each step of the way. I am the contact you're going to have. Whoever it is, I'm going to facilitate that with the board. So there is nobody else that's going to be doing the search other than myself or Dr. Galt or Dr. O'Mara. What you see is what you get. Our guarantee, certainly we will continue to look if we cannot provide a candidate that you wish to hire, and we will go back out just for our own expenses. So if there's any travel expenses, but we're not going to, there's no other fee. If they are dismissed or they resign within 2 years, the starting date, we will again do the search for no additional fee. And we also agree that we will not recruit, school exec will not recruit the superintendent over the first 2 contracts. So typically, obviously 6 years, we will not recruit that individual. We want longevity, we want you to be happy with who you have and for them to stay there. So there's the fee structure, which you have seen from a recruiting or an advertising recruiting standpoint. There are really 4 areas that, besides our website and your website, we do recommend AASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, that we would do an online 8-week posting for that. That's about $600, and that also sends a 5,000 email blast to superintendents across the country. We also would recommend that through IASA, the National Alliance of Black School Educators, we would recommend, and that's about $250 for 30 days. And then the Association of Latino American Superintendents, we would encourage advertising. So at the most, the cost of advertising will run between $1,000 and $1,400 for about 30 to 60 days of advertising. And then obviously everything that we will do on our end behind the scenes to recruit quality candidates. There also is a background check that we recommend boards would facilitate. It's a cost to the district of about $750, but it really gets into the weeds regarding financial aspects of the superintendent candidate, any criminal background, anything that a typical background check would not get into. And I can tell you it has proved to be very beneficial at times. Not necessarily a deal breaker, but certainly for a conversation or for a board to question a little bit more prior to pulling the trigger and moving forward on the final candidate. So the draft timeline is there. August letter of agreement, tentatively, with a December final selection of your superintendent of choice. So now I will just allow question and answer.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Renee. I just wanted to say thank you to Tim and opening up to board questions. So sounds like Renee has the first question. Go ahead, please.
So, Dr. Schimpf, My question is, how much time can you and Dr. Galt give to us if this is kind of like your side job?
I can give any time that you need. I work tirelessly. I have 4 kids. They're all, my youngest just graduated high school, so they're all out of the house. I have a spouse who's an educator. To me, this is not only something that I do. Yes, I certainly, it's a side, as you said, a side job, but it's also something where I do because I enjoy what I do. It's time, yes, but it's time that I would be doing something else for professional development, for helping myself grow. It's an opportunity for me to interact with other boards, other superintendents across the country, to give back to the profession. So, you know, I do things on the weekends. I do things on the evenings. When we interview candidates based upon their schedule, my schedule, it's evenings, it's Saturdays, it's Sundays. I have the flexibility to do that in my life. My board is aware. My board president is aware. I gain a great deal of knowledge by learning about other districts and by helping other boards and by interacting with all of you. What are your priorities? It's a great form of PD for me. And I would say the same for Dr. Galt and certainly Dr. O'Mara, who's retired, and this is all he does. But I wouldn't do it if I would. I know my job. I know where my paycheck's coming from, and I know my loyalty to my board and my community. And I can assure you it's not going to be slighted by anything that I would do for all of you. And I wouldn't slight any of you. And if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't take it on. I promise you that.
Okay.
Fair question, though.
Did you want to stop sharing your screen for now so we can see everyone?
My bad. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, there we go. Any other questions from board members?
I have one.
Joe?
So we've taken a look at a lot of different proposals. Thank you for your presentation, by the way.
You're welcome.
I appreciated it. Yeah, thank you. We've taken a look at a lot of different proposals, and it seems to be basically the same type of process, you know, that different search firms use. I know that you have a good reputation for what you do, but what I'm really wondering is, I mean, your cost is higher. What differentiates School Exec Connect? What differentiates you from some of the other proposals that we've taken a look at?
And that's a good question, and obviously I don't know who else you're interviewing, which is fair, but you know, the question you just brought up recently about my role as a superintendent in this search, I do believe that differentiates us with other search firms, and there's other boards who have seen that as a strong advantage. I just went through a year where I understand what it takes to be a superintendent right now. I'm very successful in my role. I know what current trends are. I looked at your district, very similar size. We have a high school, yes, but I have K-3 buildings as well. We're very unique. I have 4, 5, 6 buildings like you do. I have a dual language program like you do. Some of our performance is very similar to you. Our diversity is very similar to you. So I think I have the ability to connect with other superintendents on a different level than I believe than some of the other firms who are using retired individuals to do this work. So that's one thing. I also believe that if you were to do a search on School Exec Connect, you're not going to find anything where we have failed to bring candidates forward where there's something in there that they failed to look at. I know there's other search firms who have that. Again, I'm not bashing anybody. You asked for the differential. That's it. I also think you're going to find a level of genuineness in me and an ability to work closely with me that a board and a superintendent would want. And I don't know if you're going to find that with other superintendents or other search firms. You may, but I can assure you I'm going to be easy to get along with. I'm going to work really hard for you. I'm going to be very transparent. I'm not looking to bring my next buddy to your district to make sure that he or she gets a job. I'm going to find the right fit for you. I don't have a pool of people right now in my back pocket that I'm going to. I have individuals who are good superintendents. It might be a good fit. I might ask them if they're interested, but they're not my friends and they're not someone that I'm just going to recycle through from School Exec Connect because they didn't get the previous job that they interviewed for. And I do think that makes us different. I'm very transparent. I'm highly integrity ridden. I'm going to be very responsive to your needs. And I do know the current realities of what school districts are facing right now and where you're headed. I've looked at your strategic plan. I love when I see things like student choice, when I see the work that you're doing. And through 2023, I know you have a contract. You haven't done the negotiation. It's coming up again. I'm going through that in the next year. So I think there's a lot of similarities to what your district needs and what I can provide. And I'm not sure every search firm can say that.
That's a great answer. Other board member questions, and also want to remind Lori, Dr. Casey, and Laura that we value your input as well with your years of experience as superintendent, associate superintendent, as well as all of your years of work with working alongside the superintendent, Laura. So feel free to ask the questions as well. Board, Lori, Laura, any other questions? I'm not hearing any, Tim, but I think you did a great job with this presentation. I really appreciate your answers. Obviously you guys have done a great job with your superintendent searches in the past. Mm-hmm. And so we appreciate you coming tonight to, give us a presentation and let us know what you have available for us. So we are going to put this on the board agenda as an action item next Thursday.
Okay.
You'll hear from us after that. Do you have any questions for us, by the way?
I don't. I appreciate everything and the opportunity and the time that you're given to. I know there are probably long nights. It's a hard time for all of you as well, given what you're doing outside of the superintendent search. So I wish you well with that. And Laura, I want to thank you for your communication and your responsiveness to me. I appreciated that. But I have no questions. I just very thankful for the opportunity. And no matter what, I wish you all well and stay safe and good luck in your decisions about the opening of school coming up.
Okay, well, thank you. You too. Good luck with your opening of schools.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
Oh, you too. Good night. Okay, that was the end of our presentations for the night. We had two great presentations on possible superintendent search firms. One, Illinois Association of School Boards. The other, School Exec Connect. Does anyone have any questions, kind of board related questions on the next process? Next step in our process, as you all know, this item has been placed on the agenda for approval next Thursday, as well as we'll discuss it in closed. So, as this is kind of considered a personnel decision, we will have the opportunity to discuss this in closed prior to the actual vote next Thursday. But are there any other questions related to the process or suggestions for next Thursday? Okay, I'm seeing all, head shaking. So if there is no further business before this board, is there any further business before the board tonight? Okay, well, hearing that there is no further business before the board tonight, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Joe,
Yes.
Lizzie,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Brianna,
Yes.
Carla.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, have a great evening. See you guys next Thursday.
Hey, Laura and Lori, thank you for setting this up. This is great. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, good night.
Night.
Right.